You're watching the 2018 Legatus Summit.
Congratulations once again to all of the recipients, and we're glad you're back. Are we now excited for a little bit more Fr Donald Calloway? Great. But before we bring him back, a reminder that Bobby Rydell, Don Calloway, Fr Calloway, and myself will be at the book signing. You got to go outside and take an immediate right where you all had your 50s dessert theme party last night. That'll be happening during lunchtime and even beyond that. So please come and visit us in Salon 5 from 12:30 to about 1:30. And now let's welcome back Fr Donald Calloway.
Okay, round two. Ready? Well, the Pope said yesterday, I think, when we preach, we have to slap people. I think that's what his homily was. Did you see that? It was so funny. I was like, awesome, that means I can come out swinging now. It was something to that effect. They didn't mean slap, literally, like mean sting with a message, you know. At least that's the way I read it. Maybe I was reading the wrong source, but I think that's what he said. Okay, so before I begin this talk, I did want to mention, because some people were asking me, Father, you mentioned the book, you held it up, but what is it? So it's Champions of the Rosary is the name of the book. That's the title of it, Champions of the Rosary. So please do get a copy. You will be the most knowledgeable person in your parish, maybe in your diocese, about the Rosary if you read this book. I pretty much guarantee you that. It's good stuff. Okay, now, as promised, I'm going to make all of your delinquent, funky children look like saints, because I'm going to tell you my story. And I'm going to tell you my story, but believe me, it's not about me. I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy who's experienced a lot of mercy. I've been mercified, I call it, and God continues to be so good to me. Why he spoils me with his love and grace and Our Lady's presence, I don't know. I know better than anybody else. But I know that a lot of you have a lot of hurt in your families with children who have gone astray. So I want to give you a message of hope and a message of mercy. So as I give my testimony, in its condensed version, I want you to keep in mind your particular situation, whether it's your son or daughter or grandchildren or sister or brother, whoever it may be, okay? I want you to keep them in mind, because mine's an extreme example of the love of God and what he's willing to do, and that he has not forgotten you. You're on his mind night and day. He's got your best interest at hand. And sometimes you may wonder, I've been praying for years for my children, and nothing seems to be happening. They're getting worse, it seems. Don't panic, don't worry. My mom thought the exact same thing. And God, in his time, he has a plan. Sometimes he's taken all those tears that you cry, and he's filling them up in a bucket. And in his time, he's going to dump that spiritual bucket upon the particular intention that you have. But sometimes it takes time, like water over a rock. It smooths it out over time. Okay, so you see me now as a Catholic priest. I've been ordained for almost 15 years now, and I travel around speaking, writing books, and doing all kinds of administrative things in my community, which is not my cup of tea, but my brothers elected me to it, so now I've got to deal with finance and personnel and administration. Yay. Tons of meetings and stuff. It is what it is. It won't last forever. It's just a 6-year term, unless they re-elect me, so we'll see. So when I was born, though, I was not a Catholic. I was not born into a Catholic home, and my parents were not Catholic. They were not Christian. They were not anything. They had no foundation to their marriage. It was purely based on sensual pleasure. They'd be the first to tell you that. Well, my biological father is now deceased. And that's how I grew up. My mother divorced. She remarried. Then she divorced him and then remarried. So I had 3 fathers before I was 10 years old. None of my fathers were St. Joseph, okay? They were not men of virtue. They were very worldly men. And I saw a lot of things growing up as a young boy in America. And did I hear about Jesus? Yeah, I did. Everybody's heard about Jesus. But Jesus for me was as real as Scooby-Doo or the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy or Bugs Bunny. It was something when I grew up that you put your kids in front of every morning, pretty much on a Saturday and a Sunday, and you had them watch Wile E. the Coyote and Popeye and the Preacher Man. Between channels, you'd see some dude talking about somebody who walked on water. So to a little child growing up in America, that was not true. That was comical. It was some guy just talking about this. Nobody walks on water, right? When I grew up, I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. No, that doesn't happen in reality. Just like in the comics when the anvil kept hitting the coyote, he never dies. He's got 1 million lives. So you put a little kid in front of a TV twice a week, Saturday and Sundays, and you haven't watched these things, Christianity becomes laughable. It becomes silly. That's just for some preacher guy who's hard up for money and needs to pay for his wife's makeup because she's wearing a ton of it. That's what I saw when I grew up. It was like, that's a total facade. That's a scam. Christianity's a total scam. It's a joke. So that's how I grew up. So in that environment, my third father was a military officer. Now, he adopted me. I got his last name, which is Calloway. Most people think I can play golf really well. I cannot. Callaway golf clubs, I'm horrible at the game. But he adopted me, so I got his name, which I'm eternally grateful for, because my biological father's name up to that point that I had was Croc. Yeah, that's my dad's last name. Brutal, unless that's your last name. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Not really. It came from Krokevich. They came from Eastern Europe. They came through Ellis Island. They smashed it in half and made it Croc, So I become Calloway, and I get baptized. 10 years old, not in the Catholic Church, in the Episcopalian Church in Southern Virginia, because my new grandparents, and I got more grandparents out there than you can imagine, they were Episcopalian, and they kept saying, get him baptized. He hasn't been baptized. So finally they baptized me with no instructions needed. All I remember, I was 10, was some dude dressed in like a robe, poured water over my face, and then we went outside around a picnic table and ate donuts. That was my introduction to Christianity. No people invited, no pictures taken, because my parents, it didn't mean anything. They just wanted the certificate to shut up the grandparents. So after that, really when I was about 12, my senses really awakened, and I started to explore things. I'm not going to give you the details. This is confessional material, but really sick stuff. My heart goes out to the young generation, because back in the day, I couldn't get these things with just a click of a mouse or looking on my phone for it. It was stuff you had to look in a magazine in Mrs. January, February, and March, hiding behind a bush to see. Now, it's everywhere. It is everywhere. Young boys are being exposed to this stuff by the age of 12 today, hardcore stuff. And I mean, it's bad. You know what I'm talking about. I was exposed to stuff similar to that of a lesser nature back then. And I started using drugs, started drinking, and my life just became a mess. I was 12 years old at this time. So we moved from Southern Virginia. All Navy roads lead to Norfolk, Virginia at some point where we were living. Then we moved to Los Angeles. Then we moved to San Diego. And it was great. I loved it. And then we moved again to Japan. And I was 14 at that time, and I did not want to go to Japan. So as soon as I got there, I met the kids that looked bad. Everybody today is, oh no, you don't want to profile, you don't want to stereotype. Bunk, right? I mean, everybody's so afraid to offend anybody. Look, if this dude dressed like a freak, and looks like a freak, he's probably a freak, okay? I mean, chances are, I'm just saying, okay, maybe not a wild generalization, but chances are, if this girl is wearing dental floss for her outfit, she got daddy issues. That girl got affirmation written all over her face, okay? I mean, it ain't rocket science with this stuff. It's just everybody today is just, oh, I can't say. Nonsense. I was able to pick up on this stuff immediately, I mean, anybody can who has a brain. So I immediately gravitated towards the kids who looked like they were rebellious and wanted to have a good time. So in Japan, I hung out with the military dependents like myself, and eventually I stopped going to school. I ran away on the big island of Honshu. I was almost going on 16 years old. I caused an international scene. I was being hunted down by the Japanese government, the American government, and the American military presence in Japan in the around 87, turn of 88, and I caused a huge, huge scene. Now during that whole time, my parents were having a crisis, especially my poor mother. I put my mother through a nightmare with the pain that I caused her. She was going to counseling, she was on medication for anxiety, depression, and none of it was working. And I'm not debunking counseling or medication or anything, but there's no pill that's going to heal the maternal broken heart. When your child has done something so wrong, there's no pill that's going to be a remedy for that. It requires something deeper. You can't apply a Band-Aid to a spiritual wound, okay? So my mother was having a crisis, big time. She had a friend over there, a Filipino woman. Now, I don't know if you know this, but if there's one thing in life you don't mess with, is a Catholic Filipino woman, okay? They are the Green Berets of the spiritual life. They're the special forces of God, okay? They will take you down. These people mean business. And they marry American GIs, you know how the story goes, and wherever one Filipino goes, they bring grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, the whole generation moves into a house, And they are the rosary packing, novena praying people, if there ever was people, like that, and super devout. So she told my mother, now I'm not making fun of Filipinos. I love Filipinos, okay? I pray the next, Pope is a Filipino. Yeah, that's how much I love Filipinos. They're amazing people. But when they speak English, it sounds a little funny. So this woman says to my mother, I would find out much later, you got to talk to a father, you got to talk to him, right? Trying to get my mother to go and talk to a Catholic priest. That's what Filipino women do, okay? Now, my mother, check this out, is almost 100% Italian. Lucida Bianco is my mother's maiden name. How was she not Catholic? Just didn't pass it on. When they came over from southern Italy, through Ellis Island, the whole thing, they never passed on Italian, so I didn't learn Italian and Catholicism. But it's in our lineage, it's in our DNA. So my mom was like, why do I have to talk to a Catholic priest? But the Filipino women don't give up. You talk to him, he's got the answer to your problem, So my mom is like, fine. So she goes and talks to a Catholic chaplain on the military base called Atsugi. If you've ever been in the Far East in Japan, you know what I'm talking about. She gets her life radically changed. That priest told my mom about hardcore, in-your-face, life-changing Catholicism, stuff that the saints died for, about the truths of the Catholic faith. And she loved it. But she had to leave the country. I didn't know that. I was off, footloose, fancy-free, doing my own thing, running with the Yakuza, if you know what that means. That's the Japanese mafia. I was 15 years old, running with the mafia, carrying drugs on my person to different casinos and pachinko parlors and these different places. It was insane, the life that I was living at that time. I was 15 in Japan. Eventually, I got apprehended. I got thrown in a brig, the military holding cell. I escaped. They locked down the base, another one, Camp Zama, where they had captured me. They locked it down. I couldn't jump the fence. It was barbed wire. And then they put me in a brig. They took me to Yokosuka, the big base there, and they kicked me out of the country. They handcuffed me to a Mac flight on the inside. Probably should have put me on the outside, to be honest with you, because I was spitting on the MPs. They were thinking about duct taping my mouth. That's how violent I was. I was a caged animal. And they handcuffed me. It's a cargo plane for military. And they handcuffed me to the web seating until we flew to Honolulu. Then they put me on an American Airlines flight, commercial flight, to LAX, handcuffed and escorted by 2 MPs, military police officers, to LAX. We get there, they take the handcuffs off, and they release me into the custody of my father, my stepfather, and we go to Philadelphia, where my mother has relocated to a place called Reading, Pennsylvania, near Reading, Pennsylvania. And that's where I would go. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people from that area here. That's fantastic. I'm making reparation to you guys right now for all the bad things I used to do there. I do. I want to do like a reparation tour with tour dates on the back of a T-shirt. It'd be awesome. Back in black, So I go to my first rehab there. No, the first rehab I went to, we flew to Philadelphia, but I went to Altoona, Pennsylvania. I don't know why we flew to Philadelphia to go to Altoona. It's like we should have flown to Pittsburgh, right? Or Altoona. I went to New Beginnings at Cove Forge. It's still there. You can look it up. And I say this, you can verify it. I'm not fudging this. I'm not making this up. I was there for 3 months in my first rehab, and I had issues. I ran away from the rehab. I learned how to do more drugs in the rehab. It was a joke. I get out. I go back to my parents' house near Reading, Pennsylvania, and my mom says this, Donnie, while you're away, your father and I have become Catholic. I'm like, oh, yay, you've joined a cult. Okay, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah, I thought Catholicism was a cult. I really did. I had no idea. I was so ignorant that I didn't even know Catholics were Christians. That's how dumb I was. So I was like, whatever, you follow your little, false deities and your little unscientific nonsense. That's what I thought. Well, they tried to get me to go to church, and then I knew that they were Christians. I'm like, you guys are nuts. I can't believe you've been suckered and duped into this medieval stupidity called the Catholic Church. So I'm off doing my own thing. I ended up following a band called the Grateful Dead. I had long hair. This is what I looked like at that time, okay? Now, I'm not an ego freak. I'm working on my pride. I'm not a narcissist, but I do carry a big picture of myself around the world, okay? Just so you can see it, okay? So that was me, okay? Can you see that? Yeah, right? That's when my hair is short. I don't have a lot of pictures from this time because my mother basically ripped them all up and destroyed them. My hair was all the way down to my belt at its ultimate length, okay? All of it, bangs and everything. I didn't cut my hair for years. But I washed it, so I didn't have dreadlocks, But I was into all that stuff, That's me. I look happy, but that's because I'm fried, I'm so toasted right there, it's not even funny, That's me at that time, following the Grateful Dead. I have a tattoo of the Grateful Dead on my shoulder called Steal Your Face. It's gone now. It's a lightning bolt through a skull. I don't know where I got it. I woke up one morning, my shoulder hurt, and there it was, And a Volkswagen bus all across the country following Jerry Garcia, Bob Weir, and the rest of them. And it was incredible. I really was. I mean, I thought I would penetrate the cosmos where love would never fade away, and it was absolutely Dancing with the Turtles. It was nuts. I did so much LSD. It's amazing that I have my brain. I talked to turtles, guys. I mean, I really did. I mean, I fried myself with that stuff day after day after day. Eventually, I ended up in another rehab in Philadelphia called Charter Fairmont Institute. It's also a psychological institute, lockdown pad facility. You can't run away from this one. I was there for 3 months. I got out, go back to my parents' house. Guess what they're doing now? They're going to Mass every day now. Before it was just on Sundays. Now they're going every day. They've enrolled my brother, my half-brother Matthew, into a Catholic school, and they're super devout. My mom had turned the whole house into a church, She had bought these figurines of some buff dude ripped with wings with a spike stabbing some snake in the face. I didn't know what that thing was. But it said St. Michael the Archangel. I'm like, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. My parents are nuts. This is fantasy land, craziness. But she had them all over the house. She put them in my room. She put these cards under my pillow, trying to convert me through osmosis, I didn't want nothing to do with it. I thought my parents had bought the farm. They're Jim Jones in it. They're going to move to Ghana or something and drink the Kool-Aid. They're nuts. So I couldn't stay in their house. So I left. I was doing my own thing. I went to Louisiana. I got thrown in jail as soon as I turned 18. I got out. I didn't go to my court date. So now I'm wanted in the state of Louisiana. I go and meet my biological father for really the first time in my life because I was just a baby at that time. So I meet Papa Croc, remember? My dad. So he lived in West Virginia, and I mean, his redneck is, you don't know redneck, okay, until you've met some of my relatives in the back hollows of West Virginia. I'm not even sure they speak English, It's like, dang, dude. I mean, real stuff, I mean, yeah, real stuff. So we didn't get along initially, because I'm like this kid that I was trying to smoke his corn, in the field, and everything. It was nuts. So he's honky-tonk, and I just want to get stoned, So he lets me stay there for a while because I'm running from the law from Louisiana, and his new wife, my new stepmother, doesn't want me in their house. So I go back to my parents' house, and I go through a lot more crises and all kinds of difficulties until one night, everything crescendoed. Many of my friends are dead, either through drugs or they took their own life or they're incarcerated. One night I'm sitting in my parents' house, and I wasn't there frequently enough to even have a bedroom. And I'm at my wit's end. I had what I would call now an existential crisis. I did not want to be anymore. See, I dropped out of school. I had no career options, no ambition, no desire. To me, this was a cosmic rock going through nowhere, come from nowhere, and we're just a bunch of monkeys. Because that's pretty much everything that me and my generation were taught in the school system. Get over yourself. Seriously. I had science teachers who would tell us, they would hammer it into us day after day. You're not the center of the universe, okay? You've been downgraded. This whole thing about God becoming man, this whole Jesus Christianity thing is the stupidest thing ever. We're in this process of evolution where we're going to become something more later on. We come from dirt, through starfish and then dolphins maybe and monkeys. You're just an upright monkey who learned how to put on your pants, and now you don't smash bananas in your face. You make a banana pie, but you're nothing but a monkey. You're an upright ape. Get over yourself. There's no deity who created this. This isn't for any purpose. So that's what I believed. I was like, yeah, totally. I mean, absolutely. This is nonsense. And so for me, I had eaten my banana. I'm done. There's nothing here. So if I take my own life, and I knew that my dad had a .22 under one of the floorboards because it creaked one day, and I was like, what's that? I looked down, and he had hid a gun there for security, safety. I knew it was there. Should I do it? I was thinking about it. A couple of my friends did that. Or should I take so much acid that I sit like my Uncle Denny in a halfway house in Cincinnati to this day who drools all over his chin and he doesn't know his nose from his toe? He's gone. He's still here. He's got a heartbeat, but he's gone. He ain't coming back. Should I do that? I don't want to be here anymore. And as I sat in my parents' house in this little room they had for me that had a love seat in it where I would crash occasionally when I was there, I'm thinking about how to take my life. How do I end this thing? I want to get off this train. And as I sat there, it was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, this is what I heard. Exactly what I heard. Nothing. Silence. No music, no TV, no distractions, no video games, and the silence was loud. It was screaming at me. That's weird, but it's true. And I went out to the hallway to look at National Geographics, to get my mind off the silence. My buddies are all wasted on a beach somewhere. This was in Virginia Beach at that time, because we'd come full circle. I go out and I look, and I see books, and I don't know what to look for, but I see this one book that gets my interest. It's about Marian apparitions. No idea what that is. No, clueless. I start to read this book, and I have no idea what it's talking about. All I know is these little kids are saying, allegedly, that they see this beautiful woman. Well, you got my interest. I'm a dude, okay? God knew what to do. He knew how to bait me. Jesus could have appeared to me that night in that room, and I would have shooed away the phantasm, because that's what I was taught in school. You know, people sometimes get these mass delusions, even whole religions, where they think that there's some deity, you know. I would have, but Jesus, I wasn't into Jesus. But you start talking about a beautiful woman who smells like roses and makes little children fall on their knees and cry, I'm all ears. God knew what to do. See, I would read quotes by saints later, much later, like St. Catherine of Siena, who says that Mary is the bait of God. God uses her to win the hearts of men. St. Catherine of Siena, doctor of the church. And tons of others have used similar stories and analogies, like Mary's a magnet for souls. God knew what to do. He baited me with beauty. I started reading this book. I didn't understand most of it. But I'm like, what is going on here? Who is this? She's saying that she's the mother of Jesus? I've never heard of anything like this, right? Fairy tales don't have moms. Popeye ain't got a mother. Bugs Bunny ain't got a mom. Jesus has a mother? See, not once between Popeye and Bugs Bunny when I was a little kid did I ever hear the preacher man on TV talking about the mother of Jesus. Not once. I'm like, what is this talk? What is this? So I kept reading. And it was freaking me out because I was like, okay, I've never heard a presentation of Jesus like this. I've heard of this dude. I want to stay as far away from him as I possibly can. But the way that you're presenting him, that's different. God, yes, all that stuff that scares me. But he's so full of mercy, compassion, and for people like me, that he actually knows that we're so messed up that he sends her, a mother, a tender, beautiful mother. So I'm like, all right, what do you got to say? Because I'm like, you know what? Kind of makes sense to me that if this Jesus does have a mom, you would have to know him better than any of the preachers that I've seen on TV, right? Because if you want to know me, you just met me today. If you want to find out about me, let's say that you want to find out about my childhood. You weren't there. Who are you going to ask? My mom. She'll tell you things I don't even know. Maybe let's say I got lost as a little child for 3 days. Just saying. My mom will tell you. She'll tell you maybe about the song she sang when she was pregnant with me. And I'm just a dude. I'm not God. But my mom will tell you about it. So I was like, okay, what do you got to say, Mary? And I kept reading this book, blew me away. Blew me away. Never heard anything like it. Closed the book, read it one night, went the next morning to talk to a Catholic priest of my own free will. Long-haired freak. You could have got a contact high if you stood close enough to me. I was so baked all the time, right? I went and talked to a Catholic priest. I freaked that dude out. He didn't even know what to think. Matter of fact, he was kind of scared. He moved his chair like halfway out into the hallway. Because my parents were living in military housing at Norfolk Naval Air Station at the time, and I didn't look like I belonged on a military installation. I mean, I looked a sight. Oh my goodness, psychedelic clothes, the whole thing. And so I'm talking to him, and he goes, okay, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, dude, I want to tell you my sins. He's like, okay, you want to go to confession? See, all I knew was in that book, this Virgin Mary said, if you want peace, you've got to go to a Catholic priest and confess your sins. So I'm like, all right. I started telling this dude the most filthy, disgusting things that I couldn't even look at him when I'm doing it. My head is down, and I'm telling him this stuff. And all of a sudden, I look up, and he's looking at me like his jaw was down. And he was like, you did what? Right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, dude, you don't even know, right? And he goes, okay, hold on. We got to do this right. When's the last time you went to confession? I'm like, dude, I don't know. What is that? And he goes, reconciliation. When's the last time you came to this sacrament? And I'm like, dude, I don't even know. And he goes, okay, well, you're a Catholic, right? And I'm like, oh, heck no, you know? I wasn't there. And he goes, we can't do this. He got a little upset, rightly so. And he's like, we can't, this is a sacrament. I'm like, well, I don't know, dude. He goes, all right, look, I'm going to go celebrate Mass. I'm not a Catholic. This dude is telling me that he's going to go rejoice in neutrons and protons. He's going to go celebrate Mass in air. Yay, atoms. I have no idea what this guy's trying to tell me. He's going to celebrate Mass. What does that mean? So he goes, okay, you don't know what that is? I'm like, dude, I don't know nothing, okay? So he goes, okay, go over to the chapel, go in. When you go in, do me a favor. This is what he said to me, and rightly so. He says, go in and sit in the back, okay? Sit in the back, you know? So I go over there. I wait for a break in traffic. I go in, the door slams. Guess who's in the church? Only 5 people in the church, right by the door I came in, right in the front. 5 Filipino women. I'm dead meat. I am toast, man. It's like I walked in and they were just like, shh, come in. Welcome, right? I'm a goner. Are you kidding me? 1 took down my whole family, okay? I got like an army here of these people. So, I don't know. You couldn't get me to the back fast enough. I went to the back. I sat down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in a Catholic church. This is insane. And then one of the ladies, you know, there's always a lady who leads everybody else. It's a self-appointed matriarchal culture, you know, and she tells everybody else what to do. You got to do, right? So she tells everybody else what to do, and they pull out a necklace from their purse, and they start this mystical chanting to the boat hanging from the ceiling. It's a military chapel, a naval chapel with the boat hanging. I have no idea what these women are doing. And all I know is they're looking up and they're saying this, okay? Once again, not making fun of Filipinos. Salamat po to your culture. I love you people, if there's any of you here. But this is what white boy in the back heard, okay? Hail Mary, and then the other 4 said something like, Holy Mary, amen. Gibberish, you know, with a really strong Tagalog accent. So I'm like, I have no idea what's going on in here. But this is weird. And I'm thinking, oh, you better get out of here, sisters, because when priest comes, you're going down with your little coven. You're right. I'm thinking they're doing some coven witchcraft up in here. I have no idea. And then the woman, because they're bold, she turns around to me. She jingles her necklace at me across the void of the pews, and she goes, young man, would you like to pray the next decade, please? The next decade? What? Okay. I am not an educated man. It's true. I dropped out of high school, but I'm pretty sure decade means 10 years. Pretty sure, right? So I'm like a deer in headlights. I don't even know what to say to this woman. And I'm like, what? So she tries to clarify. She goes, the second Sarafumi study. I have no idea what this lady and her little coven is doing. So I'm like, whatever, you know? So they carry on with this little thing. I have no idea. So then the priest comes in and he does all kinds of stuff. He's dressed like a hippie. He had a naval uniform on in his office. Now he's got a robe on with a flower on it. It's weird. And he comes over, he starts doing stuff. He's going to start flying. He's doing stuff on his face. And my first introduction to a Catholic church sounded like this. In the name of Mary. What? Right? You ever been to a Catholic church like that? Like, get the bunny in there, man. Get some batteries in that microphone. Horrible. You know? It's like Charlie Brown. Okay? Catholic church and microphones, this is working great so far. This is a miracle, you know? Most of them, you got issues. So this is my first experience. I'm like, dude, what is going on? But they seem to know what he was doing. It was like choreographed. So he says something, he does a gesture on their face, he says, the Lord me with you, and they go, buck like with you, you know? And it's just going back and forth, like there's somebody up above with strings. And then they get down, he goes over to some table, I didn't know what it was. He bends over, and he picks up a little white circle about that big. And I heard the man say this. The most bizarre thing to this day I've ever heard come out of the mouth of a man. And the microphone on that table, the altar, worked. I heard him say this. He bends over, he picks up this little white circle, and he says, take this, all of you, and eat it. This is my body. And he holds it up. And I'm in the back thinking to myself, get some help, brother. Because you a lunatic, Jack. You're crazy. What? That man just told us that is his body and we got to eat it. Okay? And the Filipino women, they're like, yeah, you know, they're all into it. I'm like, this dude's a nut. This guy's a nut. And he just stands there. And all of a sudden, something like, this is how I explain it to you. It's like somebody came in the room and pressed pause. And he just stood there. Just stood there. And then I heard a voice, okay? I am not a mystic. I don't receive apparitions or locutions. This is a special gift at that time. Hasn't happened since. I heard a voice. It wasn't me having a flashback from my LSD days, okay? I know what those are like. A voice spoken not just to my ear, to me. To me. Hard to explain. The voice said to me, as the man is there holding up this little white circle, worship. And all of a sudden this happened. This is by an analogy. I got knowledge injected into me. I knew what that man had in his hands was God. I didn't know terminology. You could have said Eucharist, Blessed Sacrament, Holy Communion. Wouldn't have had a clue. But I knew he had God in his hands. I knew it with everything in me. He put down God and he picked up this really cool looking cup. I didn't know what it was, right? A chalice. And he bends over and he says, "Take this, all of you, and drink from it. This is my blood." And he holds it up. Same thing happened. Worship. Heard a voice. Then injected. Knowledge. I knew what that man had in that cup was the blood of God. I knew it. I started having this stuff happen to me like I thought I was going to explode with knowledge. See, I saw myself in a very similar situation that I had been doing something like this for years. I used to go to so many Grateful Dead shows where we all faced a certain direction, and there was what we'd call a stage, we call it in here a sanctuary, and there was, a main celebrant, lots of incense and candles and all that kind of stuff, and there was dished out a form of communion at these things. Really? Here, man. Right? And you share it with your family. Really, we called ourselves a family in the dead, that I followed around. Really. And we drank so many things, so much liquid, longing, thirsting for meaning, to penetrate the cosmos. And Jerry was going to take us there. But it never happened. But here all of a sudden, I realized, you've got to be kidding me. There is no way that everything that I've been looking for is going to be found in the Catholic Church. You've got to be kidding me. I mean, this is the institution that destroys humanity. This is the oppressive institution that oppresses women and all of that. This is the people that don't want people to read. These are the people that are just the worst of the worst, Catholics. You've got to be kidding me. He put down Jesus. He comes around. He meets the Filipino women in the front, and I saw this with my own eyes. I had just heard the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life. Now I was going to see the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. That dude held up God in a little white circle. And he said to each one of the women, one by one, "The body of Christ." The voice was right. It wasn't his body. It wasn't that dude's body. It was God. What the voice told me was right. He said to them, "The body of Christ," and I watched that man put God inside each one of them. I saw it. And then he came up and he got the chalice and he came down and he said, "The blood of Christ," and they drank it. I saw this with my own eyes. Then he comes up and he goes and he seems to have some still there. I don't know the terminology or how it works, right? He goes over to some gold box with a red light next to it, and he puts God in the box, gets down on one knee, and then he walks away, leaves through the same door he came. The Filipino women stay for a little while, and then they leave. And there I am alone, left with God in a gold box, the tabernacle. I knew it was true. I walked to the back, backwards, because I was already in the back about 6 feet. I backed up, hit a sign, had a curtain, had a thing that said confession. I didn't hear a voice, but I knew exactly what it was. Exactly. See, I've been to the hospital so many times, both the psychiatric ones and the inpatient care for rehabilitation stuff and for kidney stones. I'm one of those poor souls that get kidney stones, right? Make a grown man cry and beg for death. If you know the pain of kidney stones. I get those all the time. Pray for me. Oh, they're so painful. I'm about due for one. Oh, they're so bad. Yeah. I mean, I forget I'm a Christian when I got one of those things. It's bad. I'm like, give me drugs. I knew what that was. That was God's hospital. That's where the therapy takes place. That's where the divine physician heals souls. Because I've been to so many hospitals with broken this, broken that, emergency surgery to have gallbladder taken out, all kinds of things, right? You go in and you go behind a curtain where the doctor saves your life with the wonder of medicine. Well, this is what the church is. The Catholic Church is God's rehab. It's God's hospital for the wounded world. And I was seeing it, and it was blowing me away. And I went back to that Catholic priest, and I told him what was happening. And he looked at me at first like, oh, boy. And I understand that. I really do, because I threw a lot at this guy. And I fell in love with the church. He gave me a whole bunch of items. I went home. I hung them up in that room that I had. And I started to go to church every single day. Wasn't a Catholic. I cut my hair. I got a job. I cleaned up my language. Everything changed for me. Those little Filipino women, they taught me how to pray the decades. Before long, I was leading the decades. I was madly in love. When you're in love, you do crazy things. Right? Remember when you were a teenager and you'd be on the phone with somebody that you had a crush on? You'd be like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up, right? I couldn't get enough of Jesus. They would close the doors of the Catholic Church to lock it at night, and I would still be peeking through the windows looking at the tabernacle because I was in love. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow, Jesus. I couldn't wait. And I would go to Mass every day during my lunch break, and I'd see the people going to communion. I wouldn't go, but I'd sing, and I burned to do this. I longed to do this. But I had to go through the process. And it wasn't an easy process. I had to go through the RCIA because my baptism had been valid, when I was baptized in the Episcopalian Church. So I had to go through the, catechesis and all of that. And it was not easy because I was catechized with, the now famous phrase, crayon Catholicism. They just told me about, social justice and all this kind. I'm like, that's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm all about that. And I started working in the soup kitchen myself. That's good. That's good. But what else you got? What else you got? Because I'm pretty sure that Jesus said, the poor you will always have with you. Okay? So we try and do our part, for sure. But there are some serious issues out here that are destroying my generation. All my friends, they don't know this stuff. They don't know about the truth of human sexuality and the brilliance and the wonder and the mystery and the majesty of the teaching of Catholicism. Because you guys have got it. You have nailed it. You've got everything. You know what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. All those things. You have unpacked it. Why we're here. What it's all about. And I longed for this. I had to drop out of the RCIA program because I wasn't getting it. Because I was reading books. The Filipino women were packing me up with things called encyclicals, and stuff by St. Louis de Montfort and St. Maximilian Kolbe, and have me read about these guys named Padre Pio who had the stigmata and the way that he celebrated Mass. Blew me away. And I was like, I can't go to this class because this class is lame. I'm like, why aren't we learning that kind of stuff, right? Where's the meat? Where's the substance? Where's the stuff that the saints died for? I wasn't getting it, so it was frustrating. So I had to have one-on-one instructions with the priest, which was great. It was fantastic because I was like in fifth overdrive with Father. I was just consuming Catholicism. It was awesome. I was so madly in love with it. It was crazy in love. And eventually I became Catholic, which is the happiest day of my life, through the Archdiocese of the Military there in Norfolk Naval Air Station. And then I didn't know what to do for the rest of my life. Because I'm like, Lord, you've given me my life back. I owe you everything. And then I'm like, do you want me to marry one of these Filipinas? Because I will. And I'll give you some Catholic babies, okay? Yeah, so I'm like, what do you want me to do, And I didn't know. And I kept praying. And every time I saw Father celebrate Mass or go back there behind the curtain and hear confessions, I was like so drawn to that. But I'm thinking to myself, there's no way. My past litany of indiscretions, there's no way I could come near the priesthood. Well, I kept praying about it. I couldn't get away from it. I visited a community called the Marian Fathers. They're the main promoters of the Divine Mercy message, right? And I'm like Divine Mercy, Exhibit A. It works, And they were very hesitant, as they should be, because I had to go through a lot. I had to go through, everything to make sure that they were going to put one of these on me and I'd be a freak out there, just a loose cannon going rogue, with it. I had to learn. And I'm still learning. I'm being refined in everything. I'm still a sinner in so much need of conversion. Believe me, pray for my poor soul. We all need this. But they accepted me. And I studied for 10 years to be a priest. And now I dropped out of high school, but now I've got all these degrees and studied all these places and write books and everything. And am I special? No, I'm not. I'm no better than you. I'm no better than your sons and daughters that you're praying for. And I want you to remember that, okay? God has not forgotten you. He's not forgotten your delinquent children who maybe don't care for the faith, ridicule it, mock it, or way far away and are hurting your heart. God knows. And he's there. He's never going to give up on you. As long as you've got a pulse, you've got hope, right? Remember the story of the guy from Naples, a satanic priest that God brought back, and now is a blessed of the church. In our day, I think we're going to see a lot more of this because so many people have gone astray and they're following false religions and false deities and false ideas. But when they experience conversions, watch out what will happen. These are difficult times to be a Catholic for sure, but it's a rather easy time to be a saint because you're going to be able to carry the cross everywhere you go. And many of you are carrying it, and it's hard. And you feel it digging into your shoulder and into your heart because you're praying for family members. You keep praying. You keep praying that rosary. You keep praying those novenas. You keep doing the devotions. Those mean so much. They are so powerful. Beyond you can possibly imagine how powerful that they are. How many, as I said before, of those grandmothers praying this, everybody's thinking that it's just a silly little devotion, but their grandchild ends up having a conversion, ends up becoming a priest. So many miracles can happen through your prayers. Keep doing that. Don't let your experience just be of going to Legatus once a month and you think, check, I'm good to go. Daily, pray your rosary. Frequently, go to confession. If possible, go to daily Mass. Get radical. When you're in love, you do radical things. You can make time for it if you really try. I know for some it's impossible. I understand that. But don't be lazy in your spiritual life. Take advantage of all the treasures that the church wants to give you. Our Lord and Our Lady need you right now. Me and my brother priests and bishops need you. We need a revolution of orthodoxy and holiness and devotion in the church right now. Be a part of it, my friends, and you will find yourself growing closer to our Lord and Our Lady, and your family, your marriage, and the world will be transformed. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
Please join us for the 2019 summit at the Monarch Beach Resort in Dana Point, California, January 24th through the 26th, 2019.